Pastor Mike here in the study. Been reading in the book of Philippians this month and being challenged by that. And as we consider the book of Philippians, the Apostle Paul writes to them and he says, it is good for me or right for me to hold you in my heart or to feel this way about you, because he's given thanks for them, the church at Philippi. And he said, it's right for me to do this. And he said, he said, I hold you in my heart. And he said, you're a part of who I am and you're on the inside of my affections. And he said, why? Because he said, four things, and it's kind of one thing with three caveats or four caveats to it. But he says, I hold you in my heart, for you are all partakers with me of grace. And so he's saying, why do we hold each other in our hearts? Because we have been benefactors of God's grace together. We were all sinners on our way to hell, and the grace of God has come to each and every one of us, and we stand arm in arm, rejoicing in the fact that God's grace has come to where we are. He says, not only have you been benefactors of grace, he said, but this grace was not only a grace for salvation, but a grace for suffering. And he says, you were with me both in my imprisonment. That's where you were with. You were there with me in my suffering. And how it is that it binds us together when we go through heartache with one another. And when we suffer together, God is knitting our hearts together. And then he says, not only in my suffering, but in both the confirmation and the defense of the gospel. And so as we confirm those, we do the work of ministry, and then we stand firmly against those that would change the gospel. Both of these things, too, are what bind us together. We've defended the gospel together, and we've confirmed others in the gospel together. And so we see what binds our hearts in gospel ministry or in gospel fellowship is when we see that we have been partakers of grace together, that grace has been a grace in suffering together, a grace in confirming others in the gospel together, and then finally a grace in defending the gospel together. And as we stand faithful with the Lord, we can say to one another that he that hath begun a good work in you will perform it to the day of Christ, because I have you in my heart. I have you down here in my affections. And we have a love for one another that only comes from the fact that God has loved us first. What a hope we have in Jesus. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time in the study.